Good morning, everybody, and a happy Monday morning to you. This is another super long video. There's a lot of information in here. We have royal family stuff. We have an update on the African Parks incident with Harry. There's Meghan stuff in here. There's just so much. Let's just jump in and get busy, shall we? Let's go. We are starting with William and Catherine today with the news that they are moving to a new home in Windsor Great Park. It's very close, actually, to Andrew's home. It's called Forest Lodge. It's an 8-bedroom house. It's a move from their 4-bedroom Adelaide cottage. Now, this is where they've lived, the Adelaide cottage, for the last 3 years. And during those 3 years, they've had the death of Queen Elizabeth. We've had the King's cancer diagnosis. We've had Catherine's cancer diagnosis. And they're wanting a fresh start. This house is 328 years old, and apparently it's nestled in a secluded corner of the park. Now remember, they started out in that tiny little Nottingham cottage that Meghan complained about while their renovations were being done at the palace. Then they moved into that home. And let's not forget they have Amer Hall, which is their country estate that was gifted to them by Queen Elizabeth. And right now they're in Adelaide Cottage. If you can believe this, and I have no trouble believing it, William and Catherine are paying for the move themselves. There's also going to be some renovations, which they are also paying for themselves, so they don't have to charge the taxpayer anything. And they're saying it is likely going to be where the family will stay even after William succeeds to the throne. Now, they've already started some minor renovations. These pictures you're looking at are from major renovations that were done, I believe, back in 2001. But some minor renovations have already started, and the family is hoping to move in about Christmas time. The renovations they're doing are things like new doors, new windows, new floors, that sort of thing. The house was originally known as Holly Grove. It was privately owned and bought by King George IV in 1829 when it became the residence of the deputy head ranger, and the name was changed in 1937. Now, sticking with William and Catherine, they're on summer break, so they didn't attend anything for VJ Day, but they did release a very nice emotional statement to mark the anniversary, which they didn't have to do, but I think that's very nice. For VJ Day, Sophie and Edward were in the Scottish National War Memorial at Edinburgh Castle for a separate service of remembrance. This service was organized by the Royal British Legion of Scotland, and they joined attendees in commemorating the 80th anniversary. There was a presentation that they watched, and then afterwards they were seen sitting and speaking with the veterans that had gathered. They both look really, really good. Now, after this, of course, they laid wreaths and flowers at the National War Memorial. So a picture was taken of them, or a couple of pictures were taken of them actually leaving after the ceremony. Oh, okay. Now, they were not the only ones marking this historic event, but before we say that, let me say thank you to Remoulade Sauce for showing us the beautiful outfit Sophie was wearing. Next up, you have the Duke of Gloucester, who, by the way, is the patron of the National FIPA, which is Fellowship Welfare Remembrance Association, with his wife, the Duchess of Gloucester. He attended a service at St. Mary's Church. They also, earlier in the day, attended the Far East Prisoner of War VJ Day anniversary service at Norwich Cathedral. And they also, later in Suffolk, joined a commemoration service dedicated to the children and families of the Far East prisoners of war. They were very busy, let me tell you. All right, after that, you had King Charles and Queen Camilla, who joined veterans and military personnel at the Service of Remembrance hosted by the Poppy Legion. This took place at the National Memorial Arboretum. Because remember now, this whole thing is because 80 years ago, it was Victory Day over Japan, VJ Day. It was marked by their surrender. With him was Sir Keir Starmer. Of course, they walked in looking lovely, and they walked up to this, the memorial was there, but they walked up to that area, and then it was time for them to lay the wreaths. I believe King Charles went first, then Camilla, and then Sir Keir Starmer also laid some flowers as well. After the wreaths were laid, and of course I'm trying to put this in the right order, but it may not be, there was 2 minutes of silence and there was a fly pass by the RAF's Red Arrows. Then, of course, King Charles and Queen Camilla went back to their seats, but of course when they got to their seats, they met some 33 men that were there, now aged between 96 and 105. That's impressive. Who served in the military in the Far East and Pacific, and they were the guests of honor at this particular event. Also seen was Stormer's wife, Victoria. Now, there were a lot of things going on. An actress was there narrating the story of the war in the Far East. Then one of the intelligence corps people appeared on stage with his great-granddaughter, and he paid tribute to a fallen comrade. There was even a tribute from a poet. But there was something really big, though, that happened on this day as well. During the memorial service, there was a person there named Yavar Abba, 105 years old, a war veteran, and he made a speech. And in the speech, he said, I'm going off script, before he saluted King Charles and called him my brave king. He said, and I'm quoting, "To salute my brave king, who is here with his beloved queen, in spite of the fact he is under treatment for cancer, an ailing that I share with him, and if it provides any comfort, of which I've been rid of the past 25 years and counting." And with that, Charles and Camilla both just, so sad. Charles looked really upset, and they're saying that displays of sadness like this are rare. It's not unknown for royals to, touch an eye or have a tear, but this was really a very emotional display from Charles and Camilla. And they said it's just so rare because Charles really was overcome by tears. I mean, it's even being reported that at one point he was biting at his fingers in what looked like an attempt to control the tears. But his eyes, you could just tell from his eyes that he just looked visibly distraught. So then this guy gets done and walks up to Charles to salute him. And you can see that, this guy is 105 years old, and there were aides on either side of him helping to hold him up, making sure he didn't fall. One of the people that was sitting there, just as an FYI, was Edward Hatfield, who's 100 years old, who served in the 8th Punjab Regiment in Burma. He was on a boat in the Indian Ocean on VJ Day. "You've never heard such a cheer in your life," he told the BBC. "The war was over, you were alive, and I was alive." He also said, though, that he remembered friends who did not survive. Now, this whole thing ended with the fly past of a World War II airplane. And after that, King Charles went to the far east corner of the National Memorial Arboretum, where he viewed tributes and met representatives from the VJ associations, including the Burma Star Memorial Fund, the Far East Prisoners of War, and Children of the Far East Prisoners of War. And after that, King Charles and Queen Camilla then went to a reception to spend time with those very same veterans who served in the Far East during the Second World War for the British and the Commonwealth Armed Forces. They also got to meet some of their families and their carers. So these were all veterans who served in the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean territories. They were prisoners of war in the region. They were stationed throughout the UK. They were stationed throughout the Commonwealth. They all contributed to the war effort in the Far East. What an undertaking. This was just a fabulous get-together for these men. It was. And finally, I love this picture they put up on the Twitter, on the royal family Twitter. Now, let's go back to Catherine and William, who shared birthday messages for Princess Anne. They shared her new royal portrait with a very sweet message. Just because they're on summer break doesn't mean that, they can't do so. And also, I already showed you guys a picture that had been released. Well, they released another picture. This one's just as nice as the last. She got messages flooded all over Twitter because she's got like 600 patronages. It's just insane. And of course, we already know that for her birthday, she's on a sailboat, just her and her fabulous husband sailing around, which is exactly what she wanted. But people haven't forgotten the fact that Princess Anne is unstoppable, powerhouse, and unflappable. Let's move on to the Harry Meghan stuff. This reminds me of the baby to baby incident that happened when they first moved to California. They put this whole thing up about how they went to help, Archwell did, with Big Sunday. It's a nonprofit and this is what they do, blah, blah, blah. But basically what they did was they put some stuff in backpacks. They didn't collect the stuff. They didn't donate to the stuff. They didn't help pay for the stuff. They basically just went and put some stuff in some backpacks and also wrote notes, which reminds me of the whole banana thing. But they wrote notes, heartfelt notes with encouragement, hope, and joy to each student to let them know that they're valued and seen and blah, blah, blah. And Harry and Meghan didn't even go. They sent some of their staff to go. They couldn't even be bothered to go themselves. You guys get my point with this? It's just publicity stunt. All right, let's move on. All right, let's move on. A big thank you to Stephanie Sidley for showing me this. Look at the difference between the likes and the dislikes. So, of course, people are like, will With Love Meghan get a season 3? Well, the general consensus is no. There's not going to be anything else. Season 2 was done at the same time. It was taped at the same time. They just held it back to do some editing and the Christmas special. But this is only because Netflix partnered with her and they got products to sell to try to get their money back. Now, with an effort to make a splash, Meghan Markle has spent over £10,000 on ridiculously expensive outfits. How much do you want to bet that that was charged to Netflix? That it's a business expense. So she didn't actually have to buy the clothing. You know what I'm saying? I guarantee you that's what this is. Now, in the meantime, everybody is talking about the fact that Meghan has scheduled this Netflix Christmas special to coincide with Princess Catherine's traditional carol concert, like anybody's going to miss the carol concert for Meghan's Christmas stuff. I mean, is that a joke? And this is just like Meghan copying Catherine with everything else that she does. As a matter of fact, it's coming up again, the copycatting that Meghan does. Now, I showed you the other day that Meghan was wearing the exact same outfit that Catherine was wearing. And once again, mainstream media has picked up what the YouTubers have said. I mean, let's be honest. This article, we've covered this so many times before, that Meghan started copying Catherine. No matter how many times the Sussex squad wants to come out and go, that's not true. There's pictures from before Meghan met Harry. She was copying Catherine, right down to her wedding dress from her first wedding. But it's so obvious what she's doing. And a big thank you, as usual, to Remoulade Sauce for showing us things that Meghan copied, back before she was even in the royal family, because it's so obvious what she's doing. I have zoomed in on these as close as I possibly can without them getting too blurry, just essentially to show you. And look at the dates on the bottom, because of course the Sussex squad claims that Meghan is not copying Catherine, it's the other way around. Even though if you look at the dates, it's very obvious that Meghan was absolutely 100% copying Catherine's style. She's always copied Catherine's style since even before she met Harry. That's just what she does. All right, now when it comes to Meghan's show, British television critics has said it's an exercise in narcissism and it's toe-curling, unlovable TV. And now one of Harry's friends has spoken out and says that Americans are not sufficiently classy and we're too cynical to enjoy the show. Those comments were made by Alex Rayner, the same guy who said that nasty stuff about Sophie Chanduka from Sentabale. He goes, both Harry and his father are passionate about sustainability. Get it? Harry and his father, King Charles, because you have to have that connection. They're both field to fork methods, and that's very much what Meghan's all about. But people just pillar her. There's an enormous level of support and an appetite to see what Harry and Meghan get up to, as with any member of the royal family. Get it? They're connected to the royals. The royals, the royals, the royals. Yeah, it's not going to work anymore. Oh, and FYI, remember I told you that they're getting stuff from the YouTubers? Well, here you go. We all talked the other day about the fact that Meghan's video clearly showed bugs crawling on the plate that she was eating from. People were also disgusted because of this cookie sheet with the rust all over it. Anyway, they're finally coming out with the stories 3 days after we all reported on it. All right, moving on. All right, moving on to Harry really quickly. Just so you know, a travelist is going to a sustainability week in Africa. I don't know why. I don't exactly know what travelist does. I don't want to hear about climate change from somebody that, uses private jets like Ubers. All right, let's move on. All right, I want to touch on this last story. It's the whole African Parks thing. He was appointed president in 2017, back when he was with the royal family. Now, we know that there was accusations of abuse, and there was all kinds of stuff going on. We know that in 2024, Harry went to New York. They had a closed door meeting so nobody could say anything. Let me give you a quick recap. Part of the African Parks charity. He's been involved with it for 6 to 7 years, and he helps run it. And allegations came out that the indigenous people there were being beaten and tortured and assaulted. So the Mail on Sunday did an investigation and found evidence of intimidation in the rainforest of the Republic of the Congo by guards, managed and paid for by the African Parks charity. For those of you who don't know, Harry was the president of this charity for 6 years. And he was pushed up to the governing board in 2023. And the Mail on Sunday got firsthand testimony by these people. They used to be called pygmies, now they're called the Baka. These groups that apparently work with the indigenous people are trying to stop them from entering the forest. This is where they naturally go to, forage and hunt. Now, because I'm on YouTube, I have to be careful how I word this. One man had his hands restrained behind his back, and then a whip was used, and then he had his head put into water until he was almost drowned. There was one person assaulted, thrown into jail. His wounds were not treated, and he passed away. And one woman who was assaulted while holding on to her baby. It's being reported medical staff was too intimidated to, report what was going on. Now, the board, of which Harry is a member, launched an investigation, and they're putting the blame on Survival International, claiming that they're not cooperating with the investigation. It appears Harry was notified about this the previous May. The Mail on Sunday was able to go and get written confirmation of everything but within a week. But Harry's charity, no. When somebody contacted Archwell for their statement, they said that the second Harry found out about it, he escalated it, up the ladder, and that was it. So as a recap, the charity was made aware of the allegations after a letter from Survival International was released last May. So that's May of 2023, and they've done nothing. So African Parks is blaming Survival International, who then came out with a statement and went, The African Parks Board, the buck stops here. They are responsible for the overall governance of the organization. Now, that all took place in January. That's January of 2024. Now, in March, there were new allegations of people being removed from this earth and beatings, etc. These new allegations stem from some incidents in Zambia, and this again is rangers that are managed by organizations jointly. So African Parks, we know, is responsible for managing parks in 12 African countries. There's over 1,400 guards covering protected land. It's apparently the size of Britain. I gotta be honest, when I look at Harry and I see somebody who is so litigious, who puts out statements over the slightest misstep, who constantly says stuff, but then doesn't open his mouth about this, I literally think he feels that if he sticks his head in the sand and says nothing, this will go away. This will not go away, and it is a bad look for him, a very bad look. When you find out that Harry had been warned about everything going on a full month before he was promoted to its board of directors, that's just wrong, guys. Sorry. It came out that somebody actually sent him a letter explaining what the heck was going on and begging him for help. Now, we do know that before any allegations were made, Harry said, and I'm quoting, "The African Parks model is exactly what conservation should be about, putting people at the heart of the solution." I told you that the guards are trying to stop these people from fishing and hunting on their own land. But tourists go through on safari expeditions that they're saying cost up to £5,000 a day. So what finally happened? 12 people have been shot. That's right, shot. A man was found with some antelope meat, and he was so they suspected him of poaching. They take people that they think are poaching, and they parade them naked in front of their families and neighbors. And of course, the one guy that was caught fishing was removed from this earth, is just the way I'm going to say it. Now, that there was a shooting in the market because a ranger arrested a man found with some antelope meat, and they chased a second suspect into the village in defiance of an agreement that the local community had with them. And so the people rose up, started throwing stones, they damaged vehicles and some of the guards, and they damaged some stuff that belonged to African parks. Law enforcement fired some shots to disperse the villagers and shot some of the people. So they were notified about them in May of 2023. It all came out in January of 2024. Fresh allegations in March. And you'll be happy to know that since all of this has been happening, according to the charity, not one investigative team has gone to visit the park. Nobody's doing anything for these people, and Harry has said nothing. He stuck his head in the sand. This is not going to end well, and I feel horrible for those people. So it sounds to me like they're hoping that it'll just go away, which, people like me are not going to let it die away. So the law firm did its investigation. It found the evidence of the human rights abuse, and it had reported its findings to the NGO, which confirmed it in the online statement, the human rights abuses by the guards. So now what's being said is that Harry should step down from the board of the conservation charity. So Harry has not sought to distance himself from this organization since everything has happened. He went, as I said before, in September of 2024 to New York for this special thing that he had going, although they closed it to the public. And it doesn't look like he's going to step down. But let's be fair. If he steps down, what has he got left? Because Centobale's gone and Invictus is on its way out the door. All right, you guys, you know what to do. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the bell for all notifications. Then go down into the description box where you'll find the link to my Twitter, my Gettr, my Rumble, my email, a link to my second channel, a link to my father's book, which is still up for sale on Amazon, and a link to my Amazon wish list, as well as a physical address. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.